Get your black A asterisk asterisk out of my first-class cabin. You worthless. Who do you think you are? That's what she said, right before the coffee hit my face, scalding hot, dripping off my chin. And for a second, the whole plane forgot how to breathe. I didn't flinch. I didn't give her the win. I just wiped my cheek with the kind of slow, deliberate calm that makes a room go quiet, and I said, as evenly as I could, I'm exactly who I need to be right now. And then I looked at her name tag, and at the little wings she'd polished to a mirror shine. And I knew. This was the moment the mask had to come off. But let me back up a sec. 3 months earlier, my father, Leonard Brooks, 63, tired eyes, steady hands. The man who built Aurora Air from a shoestring regional into a national carrier, closed the door to his office and slid a folder across the desk. Complaints, he said. 47% spike in first class. Not the usual ran out of ginger ale kind. Patterns, names, routes, language that sounded like the 70s whispered through 10,000-foot smiles. He didn't talk about board optics or PR spin. He stared past the runway toward a life he'd promised his father, a black man who once saved 6 months for a bus ticket because flying meant humiliation. I want you to work the aisle. So that's how Amara Brooks, director of digital at HQ, frequent flyer brat, always up front, always the first to deplane, became Maya Williams. We learned doors and slides until our palms blistered, oxygen masks and smoke hoods until the classroom smelled like rubber, CPR timing with a metronome that made your head throb. Safety first. Always, service second. Though if you mess up either, you're done. I found my crew in a cafeteria booth. Lena Baker, a former kindergarten teacher who could win a hostage negotiation with a smile. Jordan Chun, ex-medic with quiet hands. And Sophie Alvarez, all nerves and grit and flashcards. We studied until our feet screamed. We practiced the first-class pour like it was choreography. And when Madeline watched me too closely one afternoon and said, "You adapt like someone who's been around aviation for years," I shrugged and said what you say when you're undercover. I'm a quick study, and kept my face still. The first twist came with the placement. First-class certification, straight out of training. Unusual, they told me. Short-staffed, they said. And then a handwritten note tucked into my schedule. Placement approved. Maintain standards. Whose standards exactly? I'd find out in Atlanta before dawn, standing in the crew lounge clutching a paper cup of coffee when he appeared. Gavin Whitmore, senior flight attendant, 27 years in the air. Salt and pepper hair, posture like a runway light. He looked me over like a tailor, measuring, pinning, deciding. You'll run first with me, he said. And somewhere behind him I heard a quick inhale from Paige Morrison, who'd apparently been expecting that assignment. If you've ever walked into a room where the rules are written in invisible ink, you know the feeling. Your skin knows before your brain catches up. The rhythm revealed itself by pushback. Names mattered, but not all names. Diamond meant everything. Unless the face didn't fit the story they'd sold themselves about who first class is for. Blankets ran out, but reappeared 2 rows over. A Cabernet listed on the menu was unavailable for DR. Renee Lewis. Only to be poured, minutes later, for a man in a Navy suit who hadn't even asked. Family first, Gavin liked to say in the galley, low voice, eyes on the manifest. It sounded cozy until you understood that family meant a very particular slice. White, male, regulars who fit his idea of tradition. I learned to move inside that system without becoming it. I said every name, every time. I checked the manifest twice before telling anyone we were out of something. I matched tone for tone, so everyone got the same warmth, the same speed, the same attention. You know what I mean? Equal treatment isn't complicated, it's just consistent. But consistency stands out where bias pretends to be experience, and people like Gavin notice. Overlay over drinks at JFK, he told me, in that gentle voice people use when they're telling you something terrible, that the real airline is protected by leaders who respect tradition, not the figureheads who make speeches. He had friends across routes, he said, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, traditional standards crews, and the phrase slid across the table like an oil sheen. We take care of our core, he said, meaning what he meant, and I kept my expression neutral while my stomach turned. The second twist came from my own tiny act of defiance. Dr. Harold Porter, cardiologist, diamond pin glinting on his carry-on. asked for the Cabernet. Gavin told him we were out, then took a bottle to 3A with a wink. While he was on break, I brought Dr. Porter the last pour I found in the galley, and he understood without a speech. Just a quiet thank you that felt heavier than crystal. Paige saw the whole thing and later told Gavin I had my own ideas. That's when the text started. Welcome to the A-team, and the side eyes sharpened. And the calls from a friend in HR about my personnel file began to surface. My father wanted me out. You've got enough, he said. I've got a plan. One more flight, Atlanta to Chicago, then you come home. That morning, the manifest looked curated. A few Aurora executives traveling under their own names, but no titles. Several high-status passengers of color, more than I'd ever seen in one cabin at once. Gavin kept checking his phone, making the kind of tight, brittle small talk that means a fuse is burning somewhere you can't see. We boarded. We poured. We smiled. And halfway to level off, I reached 2B with a coffee pot, met a familiar pair of eyes, and said, because the performance still mattered, "Coffee, sir?" My father looked up, nodded. "Black, please," and in that quiet heartbeat between the pour and the pass, Gavin accidentally bumped my elbow. Hot coffee splashed my dad's lap. He stood, not angry, just resolute. "It wasn't her," he said. "You bumped her." Gavin tried to spin it. Training flight. Rookie mistake. All the usual script, until Dad said my last name out loud, and the cabin temperature dropped 10 degrees. "My name is Amara Brooks," I said, setting the pot down, voice steady. Hands steady, heart somewhere up near the exit sign. "And as of this morning, I'm Executive Vice President of Operations at Aurora Air." You could hear seatbelts creak as people leaned in. For 2 months, I've been working these routes undercover, documenting a pattern of discriminatory service in our first-class cabins. Denials, delays, unavailable items that miraculously reappear. Different tones for different faces. Dad backed me without a flicker. This ends today. And when Gavin protested about 27 years and knowing our core, Dad picked up his fallen wings and said, "Our core is excellence, and excellence doesn't have exceptions." Air marshals. Yeah, we planned that part. Walked Gavin and Paige to the back. The rest of us finished the flight the way first class should always feel: warm, precise, human. At the gate, HR and legal were waiting. We took statements, we pulled schedules. We traced the informal pipeline that had been feeding traditional standards, crews their favored spots. Some people were fired. Some were retrained. Some, like Nadia Patel, who'd followed along at first but raised her hand fast when the truth came out, stayed, and I'm glad they did. We changed the audit system, blind service checks by evaluators of different backgrounds, anonymous passenger prompts that specifically asked about equal treatment. Manifest to service cross-checks you can't game with a smile. It wasn't pretty those first months. Transition rarely is, but we held the line. You want to know the wild part? Our scores went up. Turns out when you treat everyone like they belong, more people do. 1 year later, I walked a 121 cabin from Atlanta to New York, and it felt different in the way a healed joint feels. You remember the ache only when you notice it's gone. The crew was mixed, ages, accents, shades, and the service rhythm matched the training video instead of someone's bias. I stopped by 3D, and there was Dr. Porter. Same calm eyes, same quiet presence. And he smiled like we were old neighbors. "It's liberating," he said. "I get to be a passenger now, not a black passenger." In the galley, Nadia told me the new sequencing takes the guesswork out of who deserves attention. Everyone does. And for a second, I just stood there listening to the hum of the espresso machine and the muted chatter and felt the simple relief of things working the way they were meant to. People love a neat ending. Evil exposed, heroes applauded, policy fixed. And I get the instinct, I really do. But systems don't melt like that. They calcify around tiny decisions. Who gets a name? Who gets a refill? Who gets a shrug? And the only antidote is 1,000 tiny reversals stacked up day after day until the culture tips. We're not done. We'll never be done. But when I call my father from the jet bridge and he asks, "How's my airline?" I can say, with the kind of pride that doesn't need a press release, like the one you meant to build, equal excellence. No exceptions. You know what I mean? And that moment, the one you're still stuck on, the coffee, the slur half spat and half swallowed. Here's the last thing I'll say about it. I didn't fire that crew member because she insulted me. I fired her because she revealed the truth about a system that tolerated her to begin with. And the only way to honor every passenger who swallowed those smaller cuts in silence was to end the system that made them normal. We did that work in the open, we own the harm. And we invited anyone willing to do better to stay and prove it. Some did, some didn't. That's accountability. So tell me, on Min True Vayu, and everyone listening, where do you land on this? Right versus polite, justice versus tradition? If you were in that aisle with the coffee cooling on your skin and the cabin watching, would you have ripped the mask off right then? Or waited until landing? Drop your take below. What's fair? What's foul? What a community owes itself when comfort and equality collide. Your voice is part of this flight path now. And the comments section is the cabin where we sort it out. Respectfully, loudly if we have to. Until the last exception is just a story we tell about how far we've flown.